Okay, so today I'm very excited to tell you we're bringing in a new product into Agora called TaxSaver. It's actually an app, and one of our reps, Melissa Walker, brought this product to us, and we have James Schwartz and Emilio Garcia. James will be start off with the call, and I got a chance to meet them. They're located out of Dallas, Texas. And then Emilio is actually one of the main developers of the app. So I'm going to go ahead and, James, are you there? I'm going to go ahead and you start and kind of talk about maybe you guys should start with you guys' background a little bit, why you guys developed this app, why you started it, and then we'll go into the exact details of the app and why it's so important and how it's going to be helpful for everyone in Agora.
Sure. Hey, thank you for the opportunity to be on the call today. We really appreciate it. So, yeah, I grew up in New England. I joined the military right out of high school and spent 10 years in the Army. I was a commissioned Army officer, spent 15 months in Iraq, and got back and didn't really know what I was going to do with my life, but I wanted to do something different. I wanted to be in business. And I started a real estate company, and that was fun. It was great, but really quickly I realized, taxes got a lot more complicated when you owned your own business, or got a lot more complicated when you could write off some things. But, in the military, you just got paid, and the, pretty simple tax form. There wasn't a lot to it. Subsequently, about 2 years later, I got my licenses and became a certified financial guy with my Series 6 and 63, and became a Transamerica financial advisor. Emilio has had multiple licenses for many, many years as well. And, again, taxes were something that would bog us down and bother us to no end, and we didn't know what was available to write off and what wasn't, what you could use and what you couldn't use. We didn't really understand the rules and what was required, and I don't think most people do even today. As I talk to some clients that we have, almost nobody understands taxes and how they work. And we've had some tax reform here recently in 2018, but it really doesn't affect a lot of the information that's on this app. Very little needed to be done because this is classic tax information. One of the things that, I guess I'll let Emilio kind of introduce himself too, and then I'll get into why we created the app. So go ahead, Emilio.
All right. Well, Emilio Garcia. I'm originally from Mexico. I've been in the U.S. for about 15 years. And, as James mentioned, about 12, 13 years ago, I got all my securities licenses, and at the time I was doing it part-time, so I had a job and I also had a business. And that's where taxes really get really complicated, right? Because you have your W-2, but then you have your 1099. Some places you can write off some stuff, but as a business owner, you could write off more. So several years ago, I started paying more attention to what was needed and what could be done and what the rules were. And that's where we came up with this little tool to help not only our clients, but also our teammates at the office, people that were starting to build a business or were doing a part-time business and still had a job. They had no clue of what you could write off and what not. A lot of people in the multi-level marketing don't realize all the expenses that they can write off. And a lot of times that will help in retention because they might not be making too much money, but the amount of money that they're saving on the tax side can be good enough for them to actually keep their auto ship going or their, in our cases, licenses and stuff like that, just because it takes a little bit of time for the business to ramp up. So that's why we started this. I just noticed that it wasn't me coming from a different country that I didn't know how it worked. It was that 95% of Americans were exactly at the same point that I was.
And I think for me, and I think most, maybe you're like this, but most of the time, here's what happens. You get a receipt, you chuck it in a shoebox or a box, and then, right before April 15th, like April 14th, you're friggin' going crazy, frenzy, trying to add up all your stuff and try to figure out what you need to do in taxes, especially if you're a business owner or you have a small business. And so for us, we decided, hey, listen, we had a guy come and speak to us. Actually, one of the founders of our company, we had such a problem with people having to owe back taxes and having problems. We've got almost 70,000 licensed people. We had a gentleman come in, and he basically sat down. His name was Ron Mueller, and he was with the IRS for 13 years, and he tried to educate us. And we thought, man, wouldn't it be awesome if we had all this stuff in an app? So what the cool thing about what we did with TaxSaver is, you basically take a picture of your receipt, and all the categories are there for you. Emilio's going to go into that in a lot more detail. But for me, it streamlined everything that I was going to do. What normally took me, a day and a half worth of just sitting in my in my house, just eating sandwiches, trying to figure this out, was done in a matter of minutes by hitting the print button. And this is something that we've been passionate about. We brought this to the forefront because we had several people, when we brought it up as an idea, they loved it. And when we launched it immediately, we had a lot of success, and a lot of people were on board with us. And we haven't had to make many changes since the 2018 tax change. But the bottom line is that we have mileage trackers in here. We have pictures for your receipts that are stored. We've got a little number at the bottom of the app that tells you how much money you've saved in taxes. And Emilio is exactly right. When you take a look at multi-level marketing companies or network marketing companies, or just even in business in general, if you can look and see, hey, look, this is stuff I was already going to do. I was going to go out to eat. I was going to drive my car. I was going to have a home office. I was going to have a cell phone. I was going to get dry cleaning. I was going to, do something like these things. These are all write-offable, if that's a word, events. And for us, it's right down at the bottom of total deductions right there. That it'll tell you your rolling total deductions. So it is a retention tool for network marketing for sure. Because if somebody says, well, geez, I haven't made any money yet, and you say, well, yeah, man, but you've saved $6,000 in taxes. That's roughly like getting $500 a month in a paycheck. $100 a month or $100 a week every morning when you wake up on Monday morning. There's a $100 bill sitting on your nightstand. That's pretty sweet. But if you don't track it, you don't get it. The IRS is obviously, everybody's scared of them, and this app helps you take away that fear, helps you take away that anxiety, and it's easy to use. It's user-friendly, and I'm excited about launching it. I'm excited about partnering with you guys. And so that was our idea for it, and we knew it was born out of the necessity, and there's no other app like it. And Emilio's going to go into that here right now. There are several apps that do some tax, some tracking of things, but expenses and whatnot, but not like ours. And no other app on the market has the categories that we have that are required by the IRS. So I'll turn it over to Emilio.
All right. Well, just going into a little bit more detail, one of the things that we wanted to do, by the way, my previous career before I came into finances I was an auditor and a fraud examiner, right? So one of the things, knock on wood, I've never been audited by the IRS, but one of the things I wanted to make sure that if we did something, we actually did something that would not put people in jeopardy or in the risk of an audit. So when you go into, for instance, the expenses, you're going to have a certain number of categories and subcategories that are already IRS approved and reviewed by a CPA and an enrolled agent. You can add some other categories if you want, but 9 out of 10 people are not going to need any other category. What we did make certain of is that within each category, you would have the questions that the IRS is going to ask for information as mandatory fields. So, for instance, if you have entertainment is not allowed this year anymore, but meals are. But if you're going out to lunch with someone, I get a lot of people that tell me, yeah, well, I have a business card and my statement is enough because that shows when I spent it, where I spent it, and how much I spent. I'm like, yeah, but that's only 3 of the 5 mandatory questions, because if the IRS comes and does a review and you don't have who you had lunch with and what was the purpose, then they're going to disallow. And basically what that means is they're not going to disallow that expense. They can disallow the whole category. So if I go to lunch with James one day and I use my credit card report and I don't put in what the purpose was of that lunch, IRS can disallow all my lunch category. So if I had lunch twice a week with clients or potential clients, that's over 100 different expenses that they can just take off the book.
And how many of those people are accurately, writing this down on a receipt or in some sort of log? It's let's be honest, it's next to nobody.
Right, and that's why we put that as mandatory. And it takes you literally 10 seconds to log in right after you have your expense. And one of the main features of this app is the ability to take a picture of the receipt right there and store it on our cloud, right? Which is actually hosted in Amazon just for security purposes. But to me, the biggest thing when people say, "Well, yeah, a picture is nice," I still keep all my receipts. I throw them in the proverbial shoebox, but I don't take them out. But the biggest thing to me is how many of us go to restaurants or any other place, what's the type of paper they use in 9 out of 10 places? It's thermal paper. And if you go back 6 months, 8 months, or a year later to try and recap what you spent on, 9 out of those 10 of those receipts are going to be blank. The thermal paper wears out, and some of them you're not going to know what it says. And furthermore, let's say that you actually capture it for your tax return. Well, the IRS is not going to do an audit immediately. It might take them a year, 2, 3 years. By that time, most of them are going to be blank because thermal paper doesn't last. So that's a way to lock down and secure, safeguard everyone from a possible audit because the image is already stored, right? We store everything in our cloud up to 10 years. And honestly, we haven't been in business for 10 years, but I don't think we're going to purge things after 10 years because as we all know, something that's getting cheaper and cheaper is a storage space. So at the end of the day, by that point in time, storage might be almost free, so we might not need that. As you mentioned, we do have that running total in the main screen, both on the app and on the website. And basically, that running total is not only your expenses, it's also calculating your mileage. One thing that's very different, and a lot of people know MileIQ, and MileIQ is a really nice tool that keeps track of your mileage, but MileIQ only has 2 categories, and it's going to track either when you're driving or when you're as a passenger. So that's a couple of the glitches, but it's only going to track either personal or business. Well, according to the IRS, you can also write off medical and charitable. So this app is actually going to track your mileage, and it's automatically going to say, okay, what was you log in your beginning mileage, you log in your end mileage, what the purpose of the trip was, where you went. Again, those are questions that the IRS is going to ask. You can do some of them as favorite trips because I normally leave my home office to go to the training facility. Well, I create a favorite trip for that so I don't have to capture everything. And it's always going to log in my ending mileage from the last trip as my beginning mileage for the new trip. But as soon as I put the ending mileage, it's also going to calculate not only how many miles, but what it translates into money. And it's going to add it to my running total on the main screen. So it's always going to give you a very accurate number. Mileage, for instance, in most self-employed businesses, multi-level network marketing, whatever you want to call them, is the largest deduction that a person will have. Me personally, I live in Dallas, and I have offices in Dallas and in Houston, so I drive to Houston almost every week. That's about 700 miles a week that I put on my car, but it's also at 54.5 cents every mile. So what I always tell people is, if you're not tracking your miles, do me a favor. The next time you get in your car, every 2 miles, roll down the window and throw a dollar bill out the window. Drive another 2, throw another dollar bill, because that's effectively what we're doing if we're not keeping track of our mileage. And then the last thing I wanted to cover is, as James said, normally we always go in, and April 12th, 13th, we're scrambling like crazy, pulling our hair up, and you've done it more than me, James.
Yeah, I'm bald, so there you go. All right.
But instead of running through boxes and trying to keep track of everything, by doing this for a couple of minutes a day, at the end of the month, you just pull a report, and then that report is going to be done by category and subcategory. You can have it subtotaled or detailed, and then you give that to your tax preparer. And I can tell you, the first time I did this with my tax preparer, he came back to me and said, 1, I love you because it took me about 30 minutes. 2, I hate you because I charge by the hour. But it's something really simple that you don't really have to devote any more time at the end of the year. You just print out your report. It's going to be done by category, subcategory. You match that with your W-2s, 1099s, 1099-Ts, or whatever you got. Give it to your tax preparer, and it's going to be done really, really simple, accurate, and fast.
You know, we developed this just in closing. We know that, you know, the smartphone is basically the way that everybody's going to be doing business moving forward in the near future. They're already doing it. They bank on it. They communicate on it. They get their news on it. They see relatives on it. And so for us, we do have the website, obviously, but we strive to make the app so user-friendly and so easy that everyone can do it on there. The bottom line is, you know, last year I think there were 9 trillion text messages sent. And out of those, you know, 97% were read within the first 3 minutes. So people have their phone on them all the time, and people are using that phone. And so for us, you know, we're more in terms of an app. We do have a website, and we have co-branded with Agora to have your landing page and your website to get people signed up. But you know, the app is I think the crown jewel for us on this. So
yeah, the only note on that is, because of the way Apple and Android are structured, for you to sign up your clients or downline team, whatever it is, anyone to be signed up and get the special pricing on for Agora, you do need to sign up through the website. So even if it's through your phone, you want to sign up through the website first, and then once you have your user ID, you can use that on the app.
Well, that's it. So we'll turn it over back to you, Vince. Any questions or anything you want to go over?
Yeah, so this is actually right here. If you go in the back office, I clicked on Visit Special Offer, and I also believe it is right there. You can click on that to get to it. It'll take you to this page right here. This is where you sign up right here. They normally charge up to between $9.99. They have different things out there, but we're getting it for $5.99. And when you want to make sure you log in to TaxSaver.com and then /Agora. And this is where the discount is going to come in right here. They're going to be able to track that so you can get the discount on it. We also made it commissionable, which we'll go on that into just a moment. But a little bit more. I know there's some other apps out there like Expensify. Can you kind of tell how you guys have done more than like even Expensify, how you're better than some of the other apps that are out there, some of the features that you have? I know you guys were talking about that before.
Yeah, well, I'll jump in real quick, and then I'll turn it over to Emilio. I mean, like, a lot of these apps will just do expenses and won't do mileage, or just does mileage but won't do tax calculation. They won't do reports. They won't. So every app out there is doing something, but none of them are doing it all together. And Emilio, I think you've got a couple more things that you wanted to mention on that too.
Yeah, so Expensify is a great tool, but as it says, it's an expense. It's an expense report. It's not meant to be used for tax purposes.
Or self-employed business owners.
Yeah, it's just to keep track of your expenses and do expense reports. But it's not
also I've used Expensify, and they don't ask those other questions also.
Exactly.
Like you just take a picture of the receipt, but they're not asking those other questions in here that you're saying that the auditor or the tax people want to know about.
Yeah, and that's honestly, that's the main differentiator between a lot of those expense report apps and us, is because we know what the IRS will require. And again, we wanted to do something that we were empowering people to start their business and to keep track and do the write-offs that they're legally entitled to without putting them in harm's way. The problem is if they use, again, Expensify and they don't put all the information. Imagine if in my case, I drive down to Houston every other week. My mileage write-off is about $15,000 every year, just in mileage. If I don't use something like this that answers all the questions of where to, why, when, and I decide to use another app because it's simpler to use, it's MileIQ, and I don't have to do, but say, it's business purpose, and I get an audit, and I don't have on 2 or 3 of those trips all the details, they could write off the whole thing, the whole mileage. It could cost me in particular $15,000 worth of write-offs.
Yeah, there's another app out there too, like TaxBot from Sandy Botkin, and it's expensive. Do you remember exactly what it is? It's like something. It used to be super high, but he's lowered it.
It used to be $19.99. I think it's $14.99.
So it's $14.99 right now, and they don't do anywhere near all the things that we do, especially the reports. They give you can track your stuff in there, but you've got to go in and utilize and add up a lot of these things yourself, whereas our reports are generated with a touch of a button, and they're not just one report, or multiple reports. You can customize these reports and print them out as you see fit.
Yeah, and the reports will export to PDF and mostly to Excel is what I think most people actually like, because one thing that I've seen is we're all human. And sometimes we might have thought that we wrote down the expense that I had for lunch 2 days ago, and I didn't, and I take it again, and then at the end I got to go through and make sure that I didn't write it off twice.
Duplicate it, yeah.
Yeah, because we're human, and that happens. So that's one of the reasons I like to do Excel, because you can sort it and kind of make sure that I don't have 20 lunch appointments with James within a week.
And the other thing about our apps that's different is a lot of these apps are developed by app developers straight up. And, for us, being self-employed business owners for, a number of years now, 15, 16 years respectively, these are all things that were born out of necessity. And so anytime we see anything that we realize that we didn't have on there, we add it. And so at this point, we feel like it's 100% ready to go. And we also provide some tips and some things for tax purposes, and we will be giving a little bit of information, throughout when tax laws and rules change. And so a lot of those apps are more of just to buy it and stand alone. It's not really a flexible and adjustable app.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to get this into Agora is because, and I really liked the fact there's a few things. Number one, we have a lot of independent contractors and MLMers, or people in business for themselves. This is good. This could be really good for business owners also. You can get this to them, but this is really good also for you. And I really like this feature because a lot of people are in here, you're spending money, you're buying different things, maybe you're buying marketing or, but everything you're doing, you're in business for yourself, and it is a tax write-off. And when you start adding in, you're like, you're just driving around town. You guys are sales reps. I know, Troy, you drive around a lot. Different people drive a lot. And basically, I just got the app last night, so I haven't, because we just got this turned on yesterday. So I downloaded it last night. I got it on my phone, and I actually took this picture from my app. But I really like this right here because it will show you your total deductions as you're going. So like the different things you're spending, those are all going to be tax write-offs at the end of the year. And I know some people are probably going, Vince, why didn't you get this to us last year? Because I know taxes are due right now, right? And you're like, hey, I wish I had this right now, right? But I'm very thankful for this. I'm this right here, I logged into my account. Can you guys walk through this back office? I'm actually logged into my account. Maybe kind of go over some of this stuff. This isn't the app. This is actually when I'm on the internet. Yeah.
Sure. So Emilio can walk you through that, but one of the things I will tell you is this is a perfect time right now to get this thing out because everyone is so frustrated and aggravated with taxes or whatever they feel. They're emotional is the bottom line. And so we can get this in front of their face now and say, look, let's not have this problem again next year. It's, I think, an easier sell than 5-6 months down the road when people are not thinking about taxes. They're only going to think about them right before Parkinson's law, where people procrastinate and wait till the last minute to do things. So this is a great opportunity, I think, for us to get it out and launch it right now while people are still emotional and frustrated. So, Emilio, I'll turn it over to you to explain this.
Yeah. So right now you're in the expense module. So basically, once you start having expenses, you're going to see them right there underneath the search. You see that line, you're going to start seeing your expenses line by line. But if you want to create an expense, you basically click on Add New Expense, and it's going to open up the page where it's going to say, okay, what category? And if you drop down on the category, it's going to show you all the categories that are approved. And so those are, as you can see, the ones that say IRS on right of it, those are the categories that we've inputted that we know that are approved. On the right side of it, you have a little plus sign. You can add your own category if you want. But I don't know if it's going to be IRS approved or not, but some people want to do their own, and that's fine. And what we did is the ones that there's always going to be some expense that we're not sure about. That's why we have that one that says ask my accountant, right? So you can create your own expense and mileage. One thing that I will say, you'll see a module that's called time. Disregard that one. We're going to get out of that one. We're probably actually going to delete that time thing. The reason we had that is because we had a request from a big corporation that had attorneys that charge by the hour, so they wanted to be able to track their time. But at the end, it's not what we're focused on. So again, that's where you go and add an expense. You'll put the date, anything. If you can click on the add an item, add a new expense, yes, right there. As you can see on the category, subcategory, date, and where those little fields that have a star next to it, those are the mandatory fields by the IRS. So we built a tool. That's the questions I was telling you. Source of funds or comments are non-mandatory, so they're not required by the IRS. But the ones that are the questions that the IRS wants answered, if you don't put something on those different fields, the app is not going to let you record that field, that expense.
So you can't do it and mess it up is the point. And the source of funds is really a unique thing as well, because then you can kind of decide, okay, hey, where am I spending most of my money out of what account here? And it just gives you a little bit of an opportunity. And you once you start typing one in, it remembers, and you can have, hey, this is my business credit card or my personal credit card or whatever it may be. The other thing that I would mention, if you can go back to that previous screen, is the reason why, and you can do this all on your phone. Everything here, what you see here is exactly the same on your phone, and this takes literally 30 seconds, and you're done. And so it's such an easy thing. You can come back and later and file it if you're one of those types of people that likes to do this, and you've got enough discipline to come back and file it on on the website. But I'm a ready, fire, aim type of guy, and I'm like an all-action person. So I just got to do it right there. If I don't, I'm going to have my secretary or something to sit there for a couple hours putting in shoeboxes worth of material. So.
Right. So to me, that's one of the most important things, as I was saying, that mandatory field, because, again, we didn't want to do something that would potentially harm people instead of helping them. And that, along with the picture. Then the second module we have is the mileage, which works pretty much similar. It's going to have some mandatory fields. It's going to give you a summary of what you got, the name of the trip. So that basically, if you're going to training, you write down training. You can select a favorite. As I said, you can save it as a favorite. What vehicle? So the first time you're going to have to add a vehicle, so that you know. Most of us have 2 cars in the family. So, yes, we'll use our car most of the time, but I know sometimes I have to use my wife's car, but I'm still using it for business, so I can get the write-off. Even if I take my car to the shop and they give me a loaner, I can actually log those miles because I am miling for traveling for business, right? Then the other one is the category, as we said. You've got the 3 categories in there, the business, personal, and medical, and charity, which have different rates. But, I mean, you can still, I know a lot of people that do a lot of stuff for charitable organizations. Well, you get 14 cents per mile. It's a write-off. It's allowed. It's in the IRS rulings, right? The dates, the mileage, the starting and ending, and the purpose, right?
On the app, the starting and ending is done by a GPS, so you don't have to worry about it.
You can turn on a GPS function for it to track you, and it does some little map kind of tracking you, where you've been. I personally...
or you can just record it.
I personally just, every day when I get in the car, I start it. I go in and mark my starting mileage, and when I get home, as soon as I pull into garage, I put in what my ending mileage was. So I know that the following day I just started, and it's already got my ending mileage from the day before. And then the last module that we want to go through is the reports module. That's where at the end of the year, again, you're going to go, initially you're going to see a little pie chart here that's going to tell you how much you're spending on mileage or it's going to be a little pie chart, right? But if you go into expenses, you're going to be able to filter by category if you want, or normally people won't filter. I don't filter. I just say, hey, I want to see all my expenses from this date to this date. And then just do a search. You can do the summary and export it. You can do the details and export it. You can even do a calendar, which, again, some people want to see what time of the year their expenses get out of hand. It's just different reports that you can tailor. And, again, it's going to export to an Excel spreadsheet. You open up the Excel. It's going to have the titles, the columns, and everything, so you can add it up, subtotal, do whatever you need to do, and just turn it into the tax professional, and your taxes are going to be done a lot easier and faster.
Cheaper as well. I mean, they're not going to, obviously they don't have to do most of the work that they normally do. So not only are you going to be saving money by using the app, but you're saving money on tax preparing. And a lot of times people say, well, hey, $5.99 a month, that's 70 something bucks, almost $80, I guess, $72 a year. I'm like, dude, if you don't save $72 in your tax preparation, you got the wrong tax preparer.
Right. And that's pretty much about it. I mean, we do have obviously the preferences, the profile, stuff like that, which is the normal things where you can change your phone number, your address, your credit card, whatever you need to change in there. Categories, you might say, hey, this got too many categories. I want to do less categories. Well, you can go in there and change and say, I don't want to see all the categories. I only have 2 types of expenses. fine. You can change all of that, right? The presets, you're going to see the mileage. That one's going to be changing, obviously, because it changes every year, depending on what the mileage rate is. So those will be adjusting every year. Depending on what year you're doing, it's going to calculate the accurate rate for that year. So, and then we do have, I'm not sure if it's under support, that we have a couple of best practices, and then we also have, so support is to ask a question. If you go to the home screen.
It's under the tips, I think.
Yeah. On their home screen, there should be one that's called.
Would it be over here?
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. So there's a bunch of tips there, and I was told that our Facebook link is broken, so we got to get that one back up and put up a YouTube link as well. We do have a bunch of animated videos. By the way, the first time you go into TaxSaver USA / Agora, it's going to show a little 2-minute video of our little mascot there, Oscar the Owl, we call him, explaining what the tool does. And we have a couple of tutorial videos out on YouTube as well that show people how to use the tool within a quick 1-2 minute video.
This is great. So I really feel, there's a number of people in Agora. With Agora you can make quite a bit of money, and if you don't have something like this to track, you could lose money by just not claiming certain things that you do need to claim. So yeah, this is great. Okay, so why don't we go ahead?
Yeah, I was just going to say, to that vein that you just mentioned, here's the thing. If you don't know if you can write it off, just put it in there and you'll see. And if you don't have the correct categories and it's not in the right, category itself, then you can't. But if you don't know and you just I wonder if I can write this off. Just look in there. I mean, you'd be surprised. Maybe you could. And it's an opportunity for you to save some money for sure.
Right, and one of the things, obviously, this will help is to make sure that the IRS, one thing that the IRS is trying to do desperately is have multi-level companies and part-time people be considered as a hobby and not a business. And if they succeed in that, they just basically disallow everything. So I always use the analogy of the burglar going to rob a house, and you have a house that it's well trimmed, it's got an alarm sign, it's got a beware of the dog sign, all the lights are on, and then next door you have a house that the yard is tall, the bushes are through half the window, it's dark. Which one do you think the burglar is going to go into? It's the same thing with a tax audit. If the auditor, the main purpose of the auditor, their job is to make money, get money back. If they go in and do an audit and someone's got all the detail by category, subcategory, everything detailed, they're going to turn around and leave as fast as they can because they have to go and do something where they're going to get money. That's their job.
Okay, so Troy, you have a couple questions. I'm going to go ahead and open this up for some questions.
Sure.
Yeah. Actually, I've got 3 now. So I'll start with the simplest.
2 minutes ago.
Yeah,
go ahead.
So I'll start with the simplest one. You had a category, asked my accountant. Is that just labeling that particular entry so that you can get back to it later? Is that what's going on?
Yes, basically.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Next question, how does it deal with depreciation? So let's say I buy a computer, for example, and I think the IRS has you depreciate that over, was it 3 years or something like that?
Yeah.
So does it carry over, all that kind of stuff? Can you talk about that?
No. So basically what you're going to do is there is a category for hardware and office equipment, you're basically going to log it in there. Your tax preparer is the one that's going to calculate the depreciation, because the reason being is we don't want to assume anything. And as you know, yes, the IRS will say 3 years, but you also can do accelerated depreciation for like 80% and take it all year one.
Yeah.
Well, that's up to you. So we just want to have it documented so that your tax preparer can actually give you advice on which is the best way to claim it.
Yeah, and sure, that's something that we thought about early on, obviously, and that's why we created that category. So you basically, everything in that category. Your CPA or enrolled agent or tax preparer has to look at that stuff and then have a conversation with you and say, hey, how do you want to depreciate this? You want it all up front? You want to do it over 3 years? What do you want to do? But it's at least it's separated in that category.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And then because this obviously you can put it into an Excel spreadsheet, you can input it into QuickBooks that way. I was just curious if there's any other thought in terms of how it might be utilized with other programs like QuickBooks and that kind of stuff.
So we're actually in the development of a direct export to QuickBooks. It's not ready, but that's something that we've talked about, and we've actually started working with the programmers about how to get it. Maybe have just a button that says export to QuickBooks.
And that's something that we know is going to be a necessary upgrade here in the future. But the cost of building and developing and doing what we've done at this point, we've got to ramp up some users, but that's something that we know that has to happen, and so that's on our radar, and we are working on that as we speak, because that's an easy add for us and value for the client.
Yeah, and the reason we left it for a little bit later is because your top producers on companies are going to use QuickBooks, but 95% of the people are not going to be at a level that they're actually using QuickBooks.
Yeah, like the stay-at-home mom that's doing Mary Kay is not using QuickBooks, but we want to add it for sure.
Yeah, you might even consider an extra charge just for that feature, because someone who has QuickBooks is probably going to be willing to pay an extra, X amount a month. Yeah, you might want to consider that, because I know I've worked with at least a couple of companies that uses QuickBooks, and we did do that. When there was an easier way to accomplish a task that would automatically or make it seamless, so that we could just move data from one to another. We often said yeah to that, because it was just especially if you're paying somebody to do it, and in most cases that is the case. So
right.
Cool. That was my whole plethora of questions. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right, Gene. Yeah, it looks like, Gene, you have a couple questions. Should make sure she sent me a message here on here. So yeah, I really believe, Troy, this is something also we need to really, and you can help promote this with your team also, because I believe this is something that everyone needs to be doing. And because it was going to save money. And like I said, I really like this feature right here. It's showing them how much they're saving right there as they're going, right when you're on your homepage of your app. This is actually a picture I took of the app. So it's really cool. Jean has to call back in, it looks like, so she's calling back in. While she's calling back in, is there anyone else have any other questions out there? We'll open it up for a few other people out there. I know that Jean just come back in. I know James, you're out there. We got okay. So Jean, what type of questions do you have?
First of all, let's say you have a business that wants to utilize an app for like their agents. Like my husband worked for a company. He was salaried, but he had to keep track of his expenses. So can a business buy maybe multiple applications for it, or does the independent person, is there a way to work that?
No, so if you're working for somebody, it's essentially, a lot of the functioning tools that we use are not necessary because you're not going to get the write-off, so to speak. However, at that point, it is just an expense tracker for you. And a mileage tracker maybe for what mileage you're using for that company. But yes, you can do it that way. And then at the end of the year, you print the report, hand it in. And in essence, it becomes an annual or a quarterly or monthly, whatever expense report. You can do it weekly if you want. And so, yes, the answer is somebody in a business can use this to track their expenses and to track mileage and things of that nature. It just, at the end of the year, obviously they're not working for themselves, so they don't get to take the advantage of the total deductions there at the bottom. But all of the expenses and ticket items are logged and can be sent out and given to that company, whatever department that they need to give that to.
Yeah, and there's actually a category approved by the IRS that's called non-reimbursable expense. So that's for an employee that has some expenses that are not going to be reimbursed. They can actually deduct them from their taxes. So there's a category for that.
Okay, so would the individual person using it have to be paying for the app, or can it be billed to the company?
Well,
if the company wanted to use it for each of their agents?
Yeah, that's up to the company. The company can pay for that and just, give that person user access, kind of like if you use company email.
Okay, great. Another one would be...
Gene, they could just come in here, and you would just take them to this page right here and have them buy it right there, and they'd get that discount. And also, we can track it also. We're going to have a tracking expense from them who bought it and then connect it to the rep, which I'll go over in just a moment. You have another question?
I do. Okay, so if you got a husband-wife, can they use the same app so it all comes out on one report if they've got different cell phones?
Yeah. Yeah, you can use it on multiple, if they're doing joint filing and they're in the same, they just create one user ID and password and use it in multiple devices. Okay, so one more category. I am in the Midwest, so I'm in Iowa, so I deal with a lot of farmers. How do you think this app would work for farmers? Because my friends are the wives of the farmers, and they're the ones doing the books, and I hear them complaining every year.
Well, if they're doing books, I think it'll work fine. I mean, it's any business owner. The issue is kind of training that person to, if the wife's doing that stuff, they can bring the information back to the wife at the end of the day. She can input it via the website. Or if we can get that farmer trained up to, hey, listen, when I'm at the store buying something, I just snap a picture of that, put it in, and I write it off his feed or whatever, or I hit my mileage tracker on my, on my truck or whatever it may be. But if worst case scenario, I mean, the wife can always input all that stuff at the end of the day or the end of the week and save themselves a ton of time at the end of the year. So the app, I think, will work great for that. It doesn't matter if you're a truck driver or if you're a financial services guy or you sell makeup. I mean, any self-employed person, this is gonna really help them out and benefit a lot.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because I've tried some other ones too, and I like the combination of what TaxSaver has to offer with the running total, which is really cool.
Neat.
Yeah, the running total, I love it. For instance, just as an example, I got mine right here in front of me. It's $9,460.98 up to date.
So if you keep going, that's $40,000 a year in taxes you saved.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool.
Like it a lot, guys. Glad we got it.
That's great.
Thanks.
Hey,
so
I think I can piggyback on a question there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So to kind of just to be a little clearer on top of one of Gene's questions. So let's say you are a company. I worked for a company where they had multiple estimators for, that would go out to companies, and they'd have to measure, do things like that. So would this be a good solution for a company that has a number of different employees that need to track their expenses and things of that nature?
Yeah. See, so the way that I would look at that is, the company's going to purchase a $5.99 through you guys, and they're going to assign that person to create a username and password and log in. So it doesn't matter who's paying the $5.99 in essence, but then at the end of the year, that person or whatever. Maybe they're required to do monthly expense reports or weekly or quarterly or whatever. But basically, it's just going to the report page and printing out those reports and handing it over to their accounting department. And that's a simple, seamless transition. Like I said, the only difference is at this point, the tax deductions are going to be going to the company, not the individual, which is fine. I mean, the company can determine what they take off and what they don't write off, or what that's up to them. But I mean, it's a simple. Otherwise, they're going to have to buy some sort of expense tracker. I know multiple companies right now that just use an expense tracker. The other unique thing about this is if that individual has other things that he does, he can put that into a different category, like a personal category outside of his business category, and that will help him, added benefit for that employee as well, tracking some of their personal affairs if they so desire. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and as far, I mean, we actually looked at some other expense trackers, and for $6 a month, this is actually about the same. So it's probably a little more comprehensive for the same price that you'd pay for something that's just tracking mileage or just tracking simple expenses.
Yeah, because example would be, let's say that there's something that they just don't know. Hey, can I write this off or not? I mean, that's the really cool part. Is most people in a regular expense tracker, you've got to write down what your expenses are. Here, we've got so many different categories. You can put them in there. You can tag it to ask the accountant later or ask the department later. There's so many different ways you can be flexible with it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, you guys have done a really good job with this product. You can tell, very thought through, very thorough, very simple and easy. So, that's why I wanted to bring it to Agora. I think it's just a really needed tool for anyone that's a home-based business, MLMers, or just want to save money on their taxes. So, real quick here, just to close out the call, do a couple things here. Just go through here, get your about. We'll be getting some reviews in there. But here's the plans right here. And if you look at this is what it offers. So it's normally $9.99. They're actually raising their price, which you saw $7.99. They're going to be raising that. But we have it down for $5.99 if someone wants to buy it right there. And then if you do want to buy, like I said, you just click on right here or over here in Forms. You can click right there. That should take you also to the same page. And then you want to go through the website to register and then download the app, because you won't be able to get that $5.99. You won't be able to get the discount on there. Also, when you come back over here, we'll come back in here. We'll have the training, we'll have support. And then right here under commissions, there is some commissionable value. That we're putting $2.78 into the comp plan. I know it's not like a lot of money, but there is some money here. So if you buy it through your membership, you're actually going to be getting it, even $1.25 off, and you will be making commissions on this. So they were pretty generous in what they're giving us, almost half of the deal, right? That's pretty good. And so $125 a month, that takes your price down right there. And like I said, the real value is how much you're going to be saving in your taxes because you're writing them off, which I think is pretty clear. So with that, I'm very excited. Thank you guys very much for the call. Is there any last comments, questions before we end out the call? I think we asked a lot of really good questions here. James,
yeah, Vince, I have one more quick one.
I really appreciate you guys. Yeah, what's that?
I'm sorry. On that husband-wife deal, so the husband's is the primary business, but the wife has a side business. Do they need their different apps?
I mean, I'm going to answer that from my perspective. I would talk to a CPA, but I would think if they're filing jointly, then no, they do not, because
Gotcha.
you got the categories of what you're doing, who it's with, why you're doing it. So that's just going to fall into if they're filing jointly. If they're filing separately, then yes, they would need different apps.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you guys very much, and we're very excited to have this in here. I think it's just really a great addition to Agora, and it's something very neat for everyone on the call. So thank you guys. I appreciate it, and everyone have a good day.
All right, thanks, guys.